Okay, the last part of chapter 7 is going to be long run cost. And long run is when everything can change. So it's when we have enough time to change everything. The physical size of the business, leave the current market, or go into another market. We can change anything now. Capital is now just as variable as labor. So we can sell off our assets, we can break down, say, a wall of our restaurant and build another room onto it. We can double the size of the parking lot, we can build a restaurant across town, we can leave the restaurant business, move into the dry cleaning business. We can change anything. So our decision making is to decide what is the size of our business in the future and what markets are we going to be in. Now, to make these decisions, we have to do some planning. And so we're going to use what economists have created, thought up, which would be the long run average total cost curve. This is the cost curve that shows the lowest average cost of producing at each possible, I call it company size, firm size, restaurant size. I like to think of this as more of a planning curve. I'm pretty sure no business has ever created this curve, but think about if you're running a restaurant and you're thinking about maybe 4 or 5 different sizes of a restaurant. You get an architect to draw up some plans on different sizes, and so that gives you an idea of 5 different possibilities. Each one is a different size, and we could map that out into a graph. I'm not sure the owner would do that, but it's more of a conceptual. It's more of a conceptual idea of the different possibilities you have. And so economists have created a physical picture like this. These are your average total cost of different size of our businesses. These are the short runs. So each one of these has a fixed amount of capital. 3 has the largest amount of capital, 1 has the smallest amount of capital, and 2 is in the middle. Now I drew them on purpose so that 3 is below 2 is below 1. Why? Because there's a concept in economics and business where if you get larger, you can actually get the average cost down. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Before I do that, I want to give you maybe a potential question. The correct size of our business is not based on getting our average cost as low as possible. It's based on the output we're going to produce at. 3 has advantages that 2 doesn't have and 1 doesn't have, but 3 has a disadvantage that it costs more. So 3, we can get the average total cost down, but it costs more capital cost up front. It's a larger facility, we have to pay more to build it. 1 is the cheapest one to build, but is the least efficient one. 2 is moderate, it has moderate capital cost, and has moderate efficiency. So which one we want to build depends on our sales. If we think we can sell Q1, then we're going to go up and hit the lowest one we can, and that's going to be number 2. Number 2, we can produce an average cost of $10. If we go to 1, we hit it right there, and that'll be $30. Why is 1 more expensive? Because it's not very efficient. It does not have a lot of, say, technology in it. It's more labor intensive, and therefore it becomes sort of a higher cost. And number 1 is the highest at $35 per unit. This is the average cost, and that's highest because we spent so much money to build it. We have all that overhead, and we have a small volume of output. It's like General Motors building this huge modern facility for hundreds of millions of dollars and produces 2 cars. Those 2 cars would be very expensive. And so the large size, the larger business size is not always the best size. Nor the small, it depends really on your volume of output. And if you think about it, someone like Ford or General Motors who have huge capital costs, they have to produce and sell a large number of cars to survive. While someone like Maserati, who specializes in just a small number of cars per year, they're not going to build the best and biggest factory. They're going to be more labor intensive, more like a craftswork type of facility. And so the size of your business you're going to build depends on what your market is. Are you a large volume producer, or you want to specializes in sort of niche where you produce a small batch of something and you probably can sell it at a higher price because you have maybe an appeal, a cachet that the mass producer doesn't have. Now, even though I drew 3 curves here, I could draw more in. I could draw some between 1 and 2, some between 2 and 3, and so on. And so there are other points out here where I can add more curves in. What I'm after is all the best points. Because in the long run, I just want to pick the best point. So I don't want to be up here. I don't want to be up there. I want to be down here at the bottom as low as possible. And so what I want to do is pick out each of the best points. Now theoretically, I can add how many short run average costs are in here? Infinite number. And so that would, if I kept adding more and more in, I would change the shape from this kind of jagged shape to a nice smooth curve. And that's how economists like to present it, as a nice smooth curve. In a practical sense, I'm not sure a business will come up with an infinite number of potential sizes. That seems kind of costly. But maybe 3, 4, 5, or 6. But theoretically, you could have one at each possible point. So we kind of just draw it out nice and pretty. And every point along the long run curve represents one different company size. Now, the reason why it's going down initially is that and I did that on purpose, is because we have a thing called economies of scale. And we tend to believe that when businesses start small and start to grow, they can actually build new size businesses that allow them to be able to produce at a lower average cost. So we have economies of scale, and this is a long-run concept. And these are the benefits of large-scale production. Technically, the definition is that you double your inputs, you more than double your output. So example, let's say you have 1,000 units of labor, whatever unit is, and 1,000 units of capital, again, whatever a unit is, assuming we can measure it that way. And let's say our output is 10,000 units. Now, double our inputs mean we go from 1,000 to 2,000. 1,000 labor is now 2,000, 1,000 capital is now 2,000. And then our output more than doubles from 10,000 to 40,000. Well, that's fantastic. We double our inputs, that means our costs went up by doubling. So labor and capital doubles, which is our cost, but output increases by quadruple, 10,000 to 4,000. These 4,000 are going to cost less on average than these 10,000. Why? Because my cost doubled, but my output more than doubled. So if I divide 40,000 by the cost of my 2,000 units of labor and capital, whatever, if I dollar numbers, that would be a lower dollar number than this divided by the 1,000 units. And therefore my average total cost can go down. I can build a factory size having a lower average cost. What causes this? Well, this is a topic that would take a couple years to study. If you take a business course or go for a business degree, you would spend a lot of time learning about the particular economies of scale for different kind of markets. It's different for, say, services, for manufacturing, finance, all different. But economists have identified 3 broad areas of reasons for economies of scale. One is greater labor specialization. And the best example of that historically is the assembly line. I'm sure you studied American history and learned about the Henry Ford manufacturing idea of having the workers stand still, and then the automobile would go past them and they would add on parts to it, put wheels on, put on the transmission and so forth, and that allowed them to greatly lower the time involved to produce these cars, and if you lower the time involved, you can lower the cost. And some of the numbers I've seen are pretty amazing on how Henry Ford was able to lower the cost of the car. He got it down from a couple thousand down to less than, was it $300 I think at the time? Yeah, and that allowed many Americans now to purchase a car that before was just for the rich. If you can specialize in labor, you can also specialize in management. If you run a small shop, let's say you run a small bakery, you are the owner, you run it yourself, you are the expert on personnel, you're the expert on legal affairs, you're the expert on advertising, you're the expert on new technology, marketing, but to be honest, you can't do all those things very well. So if you have a large business that has, say, has a bakery that produces millions and millions of loaves of bread a year, then you can have your own management staff or personnel. One person can run research and development, one person can run marketing, and so forth. And if you can specialize in your management, you can run the business much more efficiently, much more effectively, and keep costs under control. And also, if you're on a large scale, you can, say, purchase different kinds of capital that are more efficient. So again, if you're Maserati, you're not going to be buying expensive robotics to do your welding. Your welding is going to be done by labor, and therefore you're not going to build this huge capital infrastructure. Where if you're General Motors or Ford, you're going to get the latest and best technology. Yes, it's expensive, but again, you can spread that over large volumes of output, and therefore you can take that huge cost, spread it over 100,000 cars that you produce each month or something, and therefore you can afford that. Maserati cannot. Stop there, and we'll come back with one more part to finish off Chapter 7.